Ladies and gentlemen, my name's Paul, and in this Red Gaming Telecom video, we're going to be discussing all things Kaby Lake, because Intel have finally removed the veil on the Kaby Lake architecture, and although much of the information has already been leaked, it's good because we finally get a solid release date and some other bits and pieces regarding the performance of the chips. Now, we're going to do this video in two halves. The first part, this part, we're going to focus on the desktop and the laptop and other variants of the chips which are going to be for end users, and then we're going to discuss the chips which are going to be primarily meant for servers and other such usages, which is going to be under the Xeon lineup. So, first things first, however. So, just so that we're all clear, Kaby Lake is the 7th generation core processor, and it's going to be sliding right on in between Skylake, which by the way is out now. It would be the 6600K, the 6700K, so on and so on, and Cannon Lake, which is going to be released in 2017. Now, Intel have decided to drop the normal tick-tock nature of its CPU production, and instead we have what is known as process architecture and optimization. What the balls does that mean? Well, previously you had ticks and tocks. Ticks are new processors, new process nodes, while tocks represent a new architecture. So, for example, Haswell was a tock, while 14nm Broadwell was a tick. Skylake, however, was a tock, so that was also on the 14nm. But we're not going to see that for now. We're instead going to see, as I just said, process architecture and optimization, which I'm sure some people are going to have a wonderful acronym for. But Kaby Lake would be the optimization. So optimization is obviously you're taking an existing architecture, you're optimizing it by simply making it perform a little bit better than the previous iteration, which in this case was Skylake. Alright, so now that I've given you a refresher course on how Intel creates its processors and indeed what Kaby Lake actually is, what's the release dates and what will be the performance? Well, obviously at the end of the day it's not in the hands of reviewers, so we've only got Intel's promises, but they are promising about 12% faster performance in productivity and about 20%, 19 to be precise, faster web performance compared to the older generation, which was once again Skylake. Now, the main reason, however, it's saying that Kaby Lake is going to be the better processor is for creating and editing 4K content. Now, I'm not sure why they're choosing this as an example, because it's very unlikely that anyone's actually going to be wanting to do this, but they used a 5-year-old PC architecture as an example from 2011, and they said that it's going to be up to 15 times faster while doing that. And as I said, if you're really editing 4K seriously, you're not going to be using such an old PC, but whatever. So before you rush out to Amazon or whatever your retailer is and start hammering the F5 key, you might want to wait. I'm going to read out a statement. We are incredibly excited about the strong partnerships with our OEM customers, and we expect more than 100 different 2-in-1 laptops powered by the 7th generation Intel Core to be available starting September through this holiday season. We will share more on the rest of the 7th gen family for desktops and enterprise PCs early next year. Oh boy. In other words, the launch at the moment is for two things. One is for 2-in-1 devices, which is going to be the Y series, and the U series are for high-end laptops. What does that mean if you're a desktop user? Well, basically you're on a holding pattern. I find that really interesting that they've decided to do that, and it tells me that they possibly are having issues with yields or production, or maybe they want to see what happens with Zen, because ultimately from what we've been told regarding Zen from AMD themselves, Zen is going to be released the first quarter of next year. Now I know you're going to say, well, okay, an Intel gamer or an Intel person might not be interested in Zen, and that's true, but if you're building an entire new PC, you're buying DDR4 memory, and ultimately you don't have an allegiance to one particular architecture, it's going to be very tough, assuming Zen competes really well, to argue that Kaby Lake is going to be a better processor when it once again only supports 4 cores 8 threads compared to 8 threads high-end for Zen. But obviously it depends on the two processors and how well they compete in terms of pricing, what AMD managed to wrangle in terms of performance, and finally, and this one's obviously really important, what the support is going to be like from various motherboard vendors, if there's going to be any issues, if there's going to be any little hiccups, and all of the other bits and pieces that you can probably imagine. For example, overclocking, which could well be a big deal, heat, TDP, we just don't know. I mean, from what I've read, and I'm still doing my Zen analysis, I'm about 2,300 words into it, of part 2, just to clarify. AMD are really hammering home the power consumption improvements of Zen, but ultimately until we get it into our homes, until we start actually testing the damn thing out, well, you know, whatever. Okay, so we've discussed Zen when it comes to the, I'm sorry, we've discussed Kaby Lake. God, I've got Zen on the mind right now. I'm sorry, I've just been writing the damn word Zen like 1,000 times over. So it's kind of burned into my cranium. But let's talk about Xeon. So, Xeon is probably the point where many of you are not going to be interested in. It's really for servers and high-end usages. But we will see Kaby Lake, a Kaby Lake Xeon E3 1200 V6 lineup, and there are going to be multiple iterations of this processor: the E3 1280, 1270, 1240, 1230, 1220, 1275, 1245 and 1225. Each one of those is Xeon E3 to begin with. Now, the differences between pretty much all of them are clock speeds and cache and the graphics type. So, for example, the very top end has 4 cores, 8 threads, which is 3.9 GHz base clock, cache of 8 MB and GT0 graphics with a TDP of 74 watts, while if you were to keep going all the way down, you can get to the Xeon V6, which has the 4/4 threads, with only 4 cores, so there's no hyper-threading enabled on that, and it runs at just 3.3 GHz. Still got the same amount of cache though, 8 MB, but with a GT2 GPU instead. Ultimately, it's going to be a small upgrade for those who need it, and I imagine in enterprise server scenarios, 12 to 15% can sometimes make the difference, especially if you're starting to, let's say, do a lot of compute-orientated work and you really need that extra performance. Ultimately, time is money in these scenarios, but it's not a massive improvement over the previous generation. With all of that said, hopefully you've enjoyed the fairly shorter video today. As I said, most of my time is going to be focused on Zen. Hopefully I'm going to be finished tomorrow. I decided just to throw in a lot more analysis work, and so it's just taking a lot more time. But I prefer things to be a bit slower and to, well, you know, be good rather than, well, you know, the reverse of all of that. Anyway, hopefully you've enjoyed the video. I'll see you soon. Do the normal like, subscribe, share, blah 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 thing, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now.